The Nautilus, or, in science language, the Animalia, Mollusca, Cephalopoda, Nautilida, Nautilidae, Nautilus pompilius, is a cephalopod that looks suspiciously like the head of Dr. Zoidberg. The Nautilus has been around for almost 500 million years, and according to the fossil record, it remains virtually unchanged since it first evolved. The Nautilus, described very accurately by many as a living fossil, is a creature previously thought to be extinct. It has only recently been rediscovered, as the creature tends to live from 200 to 600 meters under the water's surface, way too deep for scuba divers to come across, but not nearly deep enough to bother sending a robot down just to try and find one. The Nautilus has the longest lifespan of any cephalopod, a whopping 15 to 20 years, compared to the octopus, which gets 3 to 5 years on average. The Nautilus is also, ironically, on the verge of extinction. The Nautilus is not alone in its existence. It has about 6 living relatives and an uncountable amount of extinct ones. Which one is nature coming for next? Only time will tell. The Nautilus is a member of the phylum Cephalopoda, like squids, octopi, and cuttlefish. It has tentacles, about 90 of them, exactly none of which are used for mobility. They are used solely for catching and eating prey, which is why they all expand outwards in a pathetic display of desperation when the Nautilus smells food. Really, 90 tentacles is probably overdoing it. The Nautilus could probably survive just as well with 10 or 20, but as we all know, nature never settles for suitability. The Nautilus may be a cephalopod in structure, but not in spirit. It is the only cephalopod with a shell, meaning that it's likely the missing link between cephalopods and other mollusks. The Nautilus evolved around the time when most sea creatures were ground in coral reef roaming bottom feeders. The Nautilus was likely one of the first animals to leave the ocean floor thanks to its shell, which has several interior pockets to hold small, manually adjustable amounts of air, allowing the Nautilus to achieve a controlled form of buoyancy. This was a smart move at the time, around 500 million years ago, as it put the Nautilus at a significant advantage over the other bottom-dwelling creatures, but in retrospect, this was undeniably the most needlessly complicated way to leave the ocean floor that the Nautilus could have chosen. The Nautilus uses a jet propulsion system to move, similar to that of a squid. It sucks in water into its chamber, and then blows it out of its hyponome to varying degrees of successful motion. It can also use the sides of the hyponome as a rudder. Basically, imagine blowing air out of your mouth, filling up one of your cheeks with air, and then switching from cheek to cheek as you keep blowing. Now do it. What are you doing? That's something a child would do. Now you are ashamed. To keep up with this harsh vein of criticism, I've decided to lay out the features of the Nautilus in the form of pros and cons. Let's start with the cons. Their brains. The Nautilus's brain is significantly less evolved than the brains of other cephalopods, and is actually more akin to a nerve ring, similar to that of an echinoderm, such as the starfish and sea cucumber. Not a good point of comparison, I'll be honest. Their eyes. The Nautilus's eyes are incredibly primitive in structure. The eye cannot focus, and it doesn't even have a lens, meaning that the Nautilus must navigate the world using mainly its sense of smell. What a cruel existence. Their shell. Undeniably the Nautilus's biggest drawback. The only thing the shell is useful for is its many air pockets, which help the Nautilus maintain buoyancy, but that entire system would be completely unnecessary if the Nautilus didn't have its shell in the first place, which really makes you wonder why it hasn't grown out of this phase yet. The Nautilus's shell is basically the protagonist of an action movie who saves the world by solving a problem that he created. Everyone roots for him, and yet I don't know why. The shell may protect the Nautilus from many potential predators, yes, but the Nautilus still has natural predators who can rip through the shell like paper. And the shell is so needlessly massive that it slows the Nautilus down, making it easier for its natural predators to catch it anyways. No one knows exactly how slow the Nautilus is. We just know it's way too slow. The Nautilus has 4 natural predators: octopi, sharks, triggerfish, and turtles. And if you can't outrun a turtle, maybe it's time to drop some excess weight. Not only does the Nautilus's shell slow it down, it also makes it a target amongst consumers. Nautili are often fished by humans just for their shell, because of how fascinating it is. It encapsulates so well that Fibonacci sequence that humans love and pretend to understand so much. And this is a problem because the Nautilus is being fished at an alarming rate. The Nautilus is incredibly easy to fish for, given its bizarre craving for chicken of all things. Over 100,000 Nautilus shells are sold in the United States alone every year, causing a significant deterioration of the Nautilus population in many areas. How many Nautili remain in the ocean? We don't know. But we do know it's less than before. And we also know that the fishery of Nautili for their shells is inherently unsustainable, mainly due to how unreliable the Nautilus's reproductive cycle is. Nautilus mating is pretty standard. They mate annually. The male Nautilus has 4 tentacles that form the spandex, its sexual organ. But he's not entirely sure which tentacle is which, so he decides to shove his tentacles all over the female's face until one of them feels right, and sperm is passed along. This process may sometimes take up to 24 hours. Wow, all day. Impressive. This is the only picture I could find. I promise you I did not go out of my way to find this picture, it just happened. The female Nautilus then uses the sperm to fertilize her eggs, about a dozen of them. She then hides those eggs, either individually or in small clumps, all over the reef and or ocean floor. Basically, imagine preparing for a deep-sea Easter egg hunt. And those 500 million years of training really paid off because, so far, no one has been able to find any of the eggs. The closest we've gotten is locating the eggs of the paper Nautilus, a very different type of Nautilus. In fact, it kind of looks like a squid pretending to be an oyster. Nice try, you phony. No one knows how inefficient the Nautilus's reproductive system is. We just know it's inefficient, so I guess that's also a con. But how about those pros? I promised you guys some pros, so here's some of the Nautilus's structural benefits. They have a good sense of smell. So there's that. It's clear that the Nautilus is not yet fit for existing in the modern world. Basically, imagine a computer from 1995 trying to run Crysis 3. Except instead of 1995, the computer was made in 500 million BC. Clearly it's time for an upgrade, which I guess translates to evolution in this metaphorical context. My advice to the Nautilus? 1. Drop the shell. It's holding you back. Sure, the extra vulnerability will probably open you up to a few new predators, but there's always other methods of protection like, I don't know, the ability to move freely. 2, alternatively, just start growing uglier shells. Humans are by far the biggest threat to the Nautilus, as they remove them from the ocean en masse to make a quick buck off their beautiful shells. But this wouldn't be a problem if their shells were ugly or asymmetrical. Just imagine how much sales would plummet if their shells looked like this. Or this. And here's my concept drawing. Think about it and get back to me. The third and most plausible option, travel a bit deeper into the ocean. Your eyes are useless anyways, so the light wouldn't be a problem. And you have full control over the air and water pressure inside your shell, so that shouldn't be a problem either. Traveling a bit deeper into the ocean means humans would have to try that much harder to pull you out of it, which means that if we know anything about the human spirit, most people wouldn't even bother. Method 4, find a way to hide your eggs so you can still keep track of all of them, which will hopefully improve the rate of reproduction. I mean, you've got a massive shell with a lot of free space, why not hold them in there for a few weeks? Number 5, my personal favorite, become squids. However you guys want to go about this, it's up to you. I did it, guys. I solved extinction. You're all welcome.